Hello to all of you. Welcome into ESPN FC Live. We are with you 3 times a week on this live stream here on our YouTube channel. Delighted to have you with us. I'm Kay Murray, joined by Janusz Michallik and also Dalen, who's still getting over the excitement of being at that epic Arsenal-Manchester United game. And now he's going to take it up even a notch today, just being here with all of us. We've got a lot to get through. We're going to talk about some of the big names in the managerial, not really transfer window, but where they could be going next, who could be on the move. We're going to talk about Jude Bellingham again, because we have to, really. We've got to talk about the top free agents that will be coming up in 2024. And of course, the hot takes that we've seen on social media. A lot to get through, but let's start with these managers, shall we? I know that there's a few names coming up here on who could be on the move. But let's start, if we can, Dalen, with Roberto De Zerbi, because I know that this is a manager that stands out. He's the Brighton manager. He's made plenty of waves. He's got a big fan himself in Pep Guardiola, who said he hadn't seen his team playing this unique style of football that he's got his Brighton side playing. How long is it until he does move on?
I think he can pick his job wherever he wants to go. I think what he needs to do is look at his predecessor. Because Graham Potter was basically in the same situation for Rewind a year ago. Maybe not as coveted, but pretty close. And he chooses to go to Chelsea, and 7 months later, he's out of a job. And he's dragged through the mud. And they have the pictures of the young man. He took the job, and when he left the job go, he looked like a president. It looked like Obama aged over 8 years. Like it was a rough run, to say the least. I think you look at that and say, okay, what matters in a job? Ownership matters. Leadership matters. So as he sits back and figures out where I want to go next, the club you go to, the ownership has to be a big piece of that, and an understanding of where you fit, what kind of leash you will have, what kind of influence you will have, and ultimately, hopefully, the success you can have. And I think, obviously, Graham Potter taking that job at Chelsea with Todd Boehly coming in and the new management and new ownership, it's been a disaster, complete disaster. And when you look at United over the last 5, 6, 7 years, their management and their leadership and their ownership has been in question, and how they've run through their managers and how they've run that club and how they've spent over $1 billion and $1 billion in debt with not much to show for it. That stuff matters and puts your manager in a place of really a difficult chance to succeed. So his ability, he can pick whatever job he wants. But I wouldn't just be looking at the squad and the potential. You start with the ownership. Who am I going to be working for, and what gives me the best chance for success? And he can pick what he wants, but that ownership seat really, really matters. Not just the brand name of the club and not just where you think you can get, because if that ownership is not right, that is a huge impediment.
So obviously, it's going to have his pick of the bunch, Janusz. You'd be surprised if people haven't already been in touch with him. So what is he doing? Is he biding his time and waiting for the right offer?
Absolutely. And by the way, I don't know if I look at Graham Potter. I think if Chelsea comes in, I think he takes it. There's nothing wrong with the ownership. It's just it needs somebody there that knows how to play with that ownership, right? So, I mean, working with young players, that's not an issue for him. We see that at Brighton. If you look at his career and how he's played, how he's structured and disciplined, if you look at Sassuolo, even that move to Shakhtar Donetsk, right? I mean, there was ownership. The ownership had money. Obviously, things changed because of the war in Ukraine as well. But I think he knows exactly what to do. I don't think it scares him, if someone succeeded, be it at Chelsea or anywhere else. I agree with you, Dalen, that ownership is very, very important, obviously. But I think we've seen De Zerbi as a manager who doesn't necessarily look at how much money can be spent and, if he needs to have veterans on the club or not. I think he's got a pretty good idea of what he wants to do. And he's in a perfect position because he's I would have to imagine, the most wanted manager out there. And it's just a question of where. And I think he's got a pick of the bunch, because I think I could picture him in just about any club. And now it's a question of domino effect, right? And how patient he is in terms of waiting, because you could really make a case for Real Madrid, although I know Raul, and we're going to get to Xabi Alonso, who may be a manager that's fit, that's fit for that as well. It could be Barcelona. Who knows what's going to happen when Manchester City in time? As I've mentioned, it's worth waiting. The rumors of England. Who knows how long Pep's going to stay? Manchester City, Manchester United could be at play in a year or two, or even sooner. So even Jurgen Klopp, to some degree, he's been there for such a long time. And let's face it, let's not look at the length of contracts here, right? Because when we're talking about the biggest clubs in the world, if they have to pull the trigger, they'll pull the trigger on anybody for whatever reason that may be. And De Zerbi, I would have to imagine, would be number one in just about everyone's book.
Well, just
real quick. Okay, just on that real quick too. I do think there's an element of he's having success at Brighton, and what if they were able to get in the top 4? Like that level of accomplishment and what he would be lauded for in doing that. There's still value in doing that. And so if I were him, I wouldn't be in a rush to be like, I got to get to the next big job. Because to your point, like he has the pick of the litter. Let's figure out what makes sense the most for him. But also, you're succeeding right now, and a chance to put this club into a place that not many people thought they could be, playing on Tuesday and Wednesdays on the continent would be pretty special. Yeah,
obviously, and there's no disrespect to Brighton when we talk about that. It's just that we've seen he is likely to outgrow his surroundings in that side of things. Janusz, you touched on Pep Guardiola there. You're alluding to the Manchester City job. What's Pep going to do once his current contract runs down? Because there has been talk that he's even stayed at City longer than he expected to. He's obviously achieved everything he set out to do with this club now. Does he move on?
Well, no, I think for as long as, right now there's no indication that he wants to do it. I think he's going to go on vacation in New York City. That's going to be the first thing probably that he's going to do. After that, I think it's intriguing, the England job, because I think he feels comfortable. He loves English football. I think that if, say, England doesn't have the success that they crave, and that's obviously either European Championship or World Cup championship, I think he's going to be tempted by that. I don't know if I'd say that a few years back. The obvious choice would have been Spain at some stage. I don't know if he's ready to move on to in terms of club versus country, and does he want a job every day? But that English rumor is intriguing to me, because I could see and I could understand why he would want to do something in England, because rightfully or wrongly, and I don't necessarily think that way, but it is one of those holy grails, right? It's coming home. When is it going to come home, and all that stuff? And I think that would be a challenge that he'd be up for it. He'd be good for it. I don't know if he wants it.
It's funny, isn't it, Dalen? Because you achieve a treble like he did, and it's a wonderful achievement. And then suddenly, as soon as that happens, everyone's saying, okay, well, now he's done that. He's got to be moving on, hasn't he? He's achieved everything he set out to do. That's got to be it for him.
Yeah, it's funny, because if he didn't win in that game and didn't win the one game, if they win the Champions League final, then this whole conversation would be different. I don't think he'd want it. We wouldn't even be talking about where would he go next, because he still had that thing left to accomplish. So yes, he wins the treble. He's done everything there at that level. He's only 52 years old. There is something to be said about the daily grind. Everybody talks about how maniacal he is, how obsessive he is, how hard he works. That can grind on you, but also when that's gone, that's a huge void in your life. So you really wonder what he wants to do at this point in his life for the next couple of years. England is intriguing, but he may want to take a step back like he did after the Bayern job and assess the situation and find a job, whether it's club or country, and kind of make that decision. If he would like to come coach the United States for the 2026 World Cup, I would take him. Just throwing it out there. I would take him. It'd be okay. I'd be welcome to it. Maybe I'm the one. Maybe I'm the one. But no, I think obviously there's an element of, one, I've done everything. What else is there? And there's that burnout, but there is that void of that desire to still do whatever it is. And only 52. That's not an old guy. He's got a lot of years left in this game.
It certainly does. Speaking about a guy who's got a lot of years left in this game as a manager, Xabi Alonso has been doing brilliantly. Janusz, in the Bundesliga with Bayer Leverkusen, came in last October when they were in a less than favourable position, and that's putting it lightly. He completely turned things around. He's changed their fortunes. Along with Bayern Munich, this current season, they too are the only perfect sides. And now they meet each other on Friday as well, just to make it even more delicious. What a rivalry that could be set to be, especially with people saying that Leverkusen could be the closest challengers to Bayern this year. And you can see why people are saying it, but you can see why people are linking this man with a move away. Now, he has extended his contract at the club, but as we know in football, these contracts don't count for too much these days. Where do you see him going next? How long do you see him staying at Leverkusen? What do you think is going to happen with him?
Well, I think, like De Zerbi, we forgot to mention with De Zerbi how smart he's been in terms of what kind of jobs he's picked so far. I mentioned Sassuolo and Shakhtar as well, right? So he hasn't been tempted like many others to jump from his first team or smaller or more modest team right away to a pressure job, right? And Xabi Alonso would be wise to probably watch the trajectory that De Zerbi has taken, and probably many others. I mean, he's still learning. So, I don't want to, put him in a place where he's not going to succeed. He knows that better than I do. But, I mean, look, he's played for Bayern, he's played for Liverpool, and he's played for Real Madrid, right? We just mentioned some of the possibilities that De Zerbi has. And I think he'll be highly thought of by those clubs if he continues to do what he does. And that's a beautiful attacking football, obviously, with a lot of balance as well. With Leverkusen, I'm going to wait and see because of the Leverkusen situation. They're hot and cold. And if he puts that to bed with Leverkusen, I think this is going to be a telling sign, won't it, right? Because Leverkusen's been wonderful in the past, and we've seen them in the Bundesliga, we've seen them in Europe. But I think under Xabi Alonso, this may be a different one. That's what I'm hoping for, and that's why I'm looking forward to that match on the weekend as well, just to see those indications, how he approaches that. But I think Real Madrid will be the first one. Again, I mean, the role of Raul, and Kay, you know that as well as anybody on this panel, and perhaps even better, knowing everything about Real Madrid. We've seen Zinedine Zidane come up from Castilla. We see Raul being there as well now. There's always that part where Real Madrid hierarchy will look at that as well. But I think Xabi Alonso will be one of the front runners if indeed at some stage they need to make that change. But Bayern Munich would be probably a natural step, considering that not everybody's happy with Thomas Tuchel at the moment.
No, they're not. And actually, that leads me to talk about another manager that came up to us as we were preparing for today's show, and Julian Nagelsmann, a manager who is available. And there are some jobs available as well at the moment for him. I feel as though he divides opinion. In fact, you've been watching the ESPN FC show this week. There's been some great debate on this coach as it is. Where do you stand on him, Dalen? What do you make of Julian Nagelsmann?
I always think it's interesting because we look back a couple of years. He is the De Zerbi we're talking about right now. He's the hottest manager. Who wants him? His opportunity. Where does he go? Obviously, Bayern. I do think it's almost like you're a victim of your own success because of how great they've been. If you winning the Bundesliga is just table stakes. Doing that almost doesn't account for anything, which is crazy. But I'm talking about how you're perceived and how the fans a lot of times look at things. Now, when you get in the Champions League, that's where you're judged. And obviously, he had some failures there, and in that regard. That's, I think, what people, that lasting memory of him is some of that. And then you hear and read some of the stories. Obviously, once he's gone, you don't know what to believe. He can be crushed by the people that are inside of the club that are leaking stuff, whatever it may be. I think he didn't leave that. He did not leave that in the same stature that he came in my opinion. He came in as like the bright young mind that everybody wanted, and he's leaving now on the bench. Now he's kind of chosen to be on the bench. He could have gone to Chelsea. He's been courted by other people, other big clubs. But he's sitting back, and I don't think his image is the same. I think he's got to pick his next spot to return to where he wanted to be, and what that may be, and what that opportunity may be, is TBD. But I think he's sitting back and he's doing what De Zerbi is doing, but not in the same presence, not in the same level of respect right now, given what has happened at Bayern. And when you have Bayern again with all those players and all that ability and the history, you're expected to do certain things. When those things don't come to fruition, you're left lacking. Now, Thomas Tuchel's struggles, I think, has left Nagelsmann looking better. I think when you look at that team overall and how they play and just the quality of players and some of the questions they have at different spots, you see why why Tuchel's being questioned, but also why the team just isn't what people want it to be or think it should be. So I think that may actually help him in retrospect in terms of perception, but ultimately he's not in the same class that I think he was when he took that job.
Do you agree, Janusz?
I mean, I don't disagree, but I think he gets a benefit of the doubt because, as Dal mentioned, I mean, this was and is still Bayern Munich team that has many question marks. And for that reason, I mean, Nagelsmann left because maybe of politics, maybe the environment wasn't right in terms of players and how they perceive a manager sometimes. As we know, that's not always easy. I mean, he was let go of when, I think I remember they won every game in the group stage in the Champions League, right? Look,
after a bad season in the Champions League, the previous season under him.
And that's why you see Thomas Tuchel continue to struggle, right? And even with Harry Kane, and Harry Kane may change that because Julian Nagelsmann didn't have that in his time, right? I mean, the void of pulling out a Robert Lewandowski with everything that he was doing, that would probably pose an issue for just about any manager, right? So look, Nagelsmann gets a benefit of the doubt, I think. And failure is a funny thing because I don't necessarily look at Nagelsmann as a failure. Look, I mean, would anybody be surprised? I would put a small wager on the fact that Hansi Flick who just got let go of a German job. I wouldn't be shocked if Hansi Flick comes back to Bayern Munich and becomes their coach in the near future. I wouldn't be shocked at that. He was successful there. He came in. Remember that one season? I think when he came in, I think they were like Bayern were in 8th or 9th place. A couple months later, they won the Bundesliga and the Champions League. So it's a funny thing when you talk about failure. So I agree that maybe Nagelsmann takes a hit, but I think it had to do with the lack of, as I mentioned, most of the players not playing up to their potential. And you also Kimmich, Shadow himself kind of getting back a little bit. Some of the players are getting better. But I think Nagelsmann will get a big job in no time.
Let's talk a little bit about Jude Bellingham. In fact, we don't need to right now because our FC team have put together a really lovely chat about the player. He has made an instant, incredible impact at Real Madrid. He's had a little break from domestic action now that it is international week, but we wonder if he can pick up where he left off after what has been an amazing start. Real Madrid have been very reliant on him as well so far, and you wonder if that can continue. But let's hear what our guys on the show had to say about him.
Welcome in then to the ESPN FC studios. I'm Dan Thomas, Craig Burley's here, as is Ali Moreno. Julien Laurent is with us. Jules, I want to start with you as a man based in London. We're going to discuss Jude Bellingham. How much has his impact at Real Madrid resonated in England? Because we know how blinkered they are. It's kind of Premier League and don't really pay much attention to anything else. His performance has been extraordinary, obviously. 5 goals in opening 4 games. Is anyone talking about it?
Yeah, loads of people, Dan. Of course, a lot of headlines on Jude Bellingham in the newspapers, on radio, on La Liga TV coverage, which is the channel that we have here in England if you want to follow La Liga. La Liga, I guess, since the David Beckham years, really is the most popular league outside of the Premier League. You're right, the Premier League is everything here, but you still have a bit of time for La Liga, more than the other leagues, really. And I think helping by the fact that Jude is there and doing so well, that's had a lot of airtime over here since the start of the season.
Did you really think nobody would be talking about Jude Bellingham? Everybody's talking about Jude Bellingham.
I was intrigued. I was intrigued because I know what England is like.
Yeah, but they have...
Compared to us here. Like, we watch everything here. We can comfortably talk about other things. When it comes...
Are you saying they're very insular?
Yes, I think insular is exactly the right word.
Yeah, but I think it's slightly different in the fact... I would agree with that, for sure. But I think it's slightly different in the fact that he is such a big star for them in their national team going forward. Has been already and will be. He will be the main guy for many a year to come. And it's just how Southgate is going to build this around attacking players, but mainly him, and how they're going to use Jude Bellingham. So I think because of that, it's unthinkable that they will not be really talking about him.
If you look at the sample size of English players that have gone and played abroad, more have failed than succeeded. I think overall, there are obviously many exceptions.
British. British players.
I was focusing on English players. You want to go British?
Yeah, Britain.
Okay, all right then. Okay, right.
English, all England again, isn't it?
Well, Jude Bellingham is English.
Yeah.
Yes.
When he lived in Britain.
But yeah.
British players go abroad, right? Anyway,
all right.
You're annoying me.
British English players go abroad. What is it about him that has made him hit the ground running so quickly in this environment?
Not only are we talking about La Liga environment, but Real Madrid within La Liga environment, which I think it's a bigger stage than any really in Spain. And so we look at him and him being the big signing player for Real Madrid and what the expectations were for him coming in. And what you see from him is a level of maturity that I think it was clear to see at Borussia Dortmund, but now even more so at Real Madrid. You may have thought he's just kind of going to ease his way into Real Madrid. No. From the very beginning, he has been the guy, the reference point. And even the formation that Ancelotti has put on the field features him as a player and highlights his skill set. The other thing that I think is important from Jude Bellingham perspective is that while he may be 20 years old, the physicality of Jude Bellingham, just him showing up in the locker room. Let me just say this, Dan. Jude Bellingham walking into that locker room would be a whole lot different than, say, for example, you or Seb or myself even walk into that locker room. The physicality and the presence of Jude Bellingham, that it demands attention, it demands respect. And then you see the guy playing with the ball at his feet. Then you see what he is on the field. And of course you want to be part of that, and Real Madrid have taken full advantage.
There's not a very good examples there, particularly him and Xabi.
I'm just saying.
I can't believe I'm catching straight.
But you know what? I think the best thing that he did was when he left Birmingham City as a 16-year-old, he went to Dortmund. It's a different country, big club. I think had he stayed in England and moved from Birmingham to maybe say one of those insular English clubs, and then made the move to Real Madrid, I don't think they'd be getting as good and as mature a player. I think the fact that what he did in that move, those 3 years in Germany at Dortmund, with the lifestyle, the cultural difference, and the league, was absolutely perfect for him. And I think that enhanced his progression. There's no doubt about it. And the fact now that he is so comfortable, and he was comfortable in his press conference just to walk in and feel as if he was at home, that was one of the most amazing things.
I can also say that the fact that from a young age he's been at Dortmund, he's been abroad already, right? So living abroad is not this thing that is so somehow mysterious. Oh my God, he's leaving England to go somewhere else and play? Yeah, that can happen. And he has done that. He went to Dortmund and succeeded at Dortmund, now goes to Spain, and it's not a different experience in the sense of living abroad. This is what he does.
Right.
And he just allows the language that is common for everybody in Real Madrid is playing the game. And that is something that Jude Bellingham has been outstanding, not only in his time with Real Madrid, but we have seen this coming. It is not a surprise that he's doing so well. I think what is a surprise is that he's doing so well so early.
But Real Madrid need him doing well because they haven't been great.
No, it's not easy for us Brits to live abroad, you know. There's cultural differences, and you've got to try and...
Oh, yeah, very much so.
You've got to try and embrace it.
Yeah.
What was your question?
My question was, Real Madrid have not been very good.
No.
He's carried them so far. And
Them and Barcelona haven't been very good, and he has, yeah.
So will this Real Madrid side improve, or are they a case that when Bellingham's honeymoon is over, this team is going to dip?
There is a chance that may happen, and you call it the honeymoon. I mean, let's just say his form takes a dip.
What's wrong with honeymoon?
They're two different things.
Not really.
So
he's come in. It's been great. It's like when you get married.
So
Everyone's happy.
say he has a quiet 3 or 4 games.
How long did your honeymoon period last?
Oh,
Which one? The actual honeymoon?
Yeah.
Or, 24 hours. And it went terribly after that. Nobody backed me up. The supporting cast for him, you don't want to know about Mama. The supporting cast for Jude
Better go.
Story now.
That's when, this is supposed to be a serious segment here.
I don't know.
That is when the others are going to have to step up. Vinicius Junior has had a little pipe up about his possession. Rodrigo's played. Tchouameni's played. Camavinga, Valverde, they've all played okay. He's been the guy that's got them over the line. If he has a little quiet period, others will have to step into those big shoes.
Jules, who's going to win La Liga?
I said Barcelona, so I have to stick to Barcelona. I think it would be tight, and Atletico Madrid will be there too. But I still think that Barca can win it and can beat this Real Madrid team.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Just a reminder, there is plenty more content here regarding La Liga and the other leagues in Europe as well, and indeed MLS here on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe.
Don't forget to subscribe. You don't have to always hear about Craig's honeymoon. Who wants to know about that? You'd have to laugh at him, though, suddenly calling Jude Bellingham British. Now he wants to claim him as British and not just English, given his success. I know what you're up to, Craig Burley. But Janusz, they can't continue to win games in the manner that they have been for the start of the season, and they can't be relying on him to do that every week, can they?
No, and they don't have to. They just have to stay within reach when everybody is back. That's the name of the game for any big club in the world, right? We often talk about Manchester City. We talk about Bayern Munich sometimes. We talk about slow starts. Right now, last time I checked, they're top of the league. They've won every game so far. I think they'll be tested. We'll find out a little bit more in the next couple matches, right? I think they have Sociedad and Atleti coming up. So that's going to be the real test, not just for Jude Bellingham, but for Real Madrid. But look, he's been a bonus to Real Madrid. Nobody expected that. So he walked into this massive club with massive expectations. The one thing I would say about him, as first and foremost, Carlo Ancelotti created a system that's good for him, right? I mean, he recently said that, he's their Benzema. I don't think he said that ahead of the season, but when he saw what he's capable of once he had him there, I think he created that system that helped Bellingham. Maybe has hurt Vinny Jr. in the beginning before he was injured, but I think Bellingham will continue to probably play well. I don't know if he's going to be scoring every game, but for Real Madrid, it's just a question of waiting on Vinny Jr. to get healthy. I think you're going to get goals from him, from Rodrigo. You have midfield that's second to none, right, in terms of experience and quality, and Tchouaméni and Camavinga coming up with Kroos and Modric providing the experience from time to time. The goalkeeper situation is not as bad as everybody thought. Thibaut Courtois is an excellent goalkeeper, but Kepa is not too bad. Last time I checked, and Militao, of course, is missed as well. So they don't have to rely on him. The one thing I will say about Bellingham is that, why did he go there? Obviously he was an excellent player, but I think, the scouting department or everybody involved with Real Madrid probably saw a young man that has already had massive or big personality. And we know that. We've heard that maybe the dressing room at Borussia Dortmund kind of felt that, I don't want to say he was too big-headed, but too sure of himself, a little bit arrogant. But you know what? You need to be that type. And I don't know him personally, because that could be a positive and a negative at the same time. But you certainly have to have that big personality, that little bit of arrogance to come into Real Madrid and do what Jude Bellingham has done at such an early age, right? It doesn't happen by chance. You can provide a formation, a system of play, and everything else. But when you look around the walls, right, when you get into the Bernabeu and you look at some of the stars, and we've mentioned, how great can he be? I don't know how great, but, having the Zinedine Zidane and follow into footsteps in that midfield and all that, it's certainly not easy. So I think, aside from his obvious talent, the personality has to be unbelievably strong to do what he's done early on.
Just on that too. Sorry, and just on that note, because I think there's an it quality. People talk about that a lot, but you can see it in certain people. And I'm from a personal experience, I cover a lot of college basketball. I know it's a global show, so I'll give you a couple global stars. When you saw Joel Embiid 8 years ago, we were talking to Bill Self. Andrew Wiggins was the #1 draft pick that year, but Bill Self says, no, that's the best player I've ever coached. Embiid weighed 80 pounds less than he does now. He just was off. He just was first week or so at KU. And he knew that was going to be the guy. And when you see him practice, you're like, man, he's got something. And the coach knows it right away. Ask Coach K about Zion. The smile that Coach K had, he's pretty good. And then you watch him practice, you're like, holy cow, this kid he's got something else. And it's not just about him doing 360 windmill dunks. It's how he carried himself, how he played. Now he's got issues in New Orleans. Now we know that. But how he did then looked a different way. Whenever you talk to people that were around Bellingham or talk to people at Dortmund, it seemed like it came through the same way. That this dude, despite your point, Janusz, about the ego, that could be good and bad, but he carried himself in a manner of almost above. They had an aura about him and a confidence about him at a very young age, and a maturity about him clearly that he developed, as the guys mentioned, from going abroad at 16, succeeding in a young Dortmund team at a high level, and coming to one of the biggest clubs, if not the biggest club in the world, and doing this has been remarkably impressive. That said, Sociedad, Union Berlin in the middle of the week at a group stage game. I think it's the early game on Wednesday as well, and then you finish with Atleti in the weekend. This is a huge week, and with a depleted squad with injuries, no, he can't be expected to do the same thing all the time. But the system built around him allows him to succeed. He has to play at a very high level, but he's going to need help. Vinny Jr. getting back healthy is obviously huge. He's one of the best players in the world. Having him out of that lineup is big. The goalkeeper situation hasn't been an issue to this point, Janusz, but I think there's questions to be asked about how they play at that position and how Thibaut is filled in, because you knew what you had back there. It's different with Kepa, but we'll see how things play out. I think overall, this team is still capable of winning, and the odds makers have it at that, -140. So if you got to bet $140 to win 100. That's a heavy favorite right now. Barcelona right now is 1.5 times your money if you bet them to win the league. So they still really feel that Real Madrid is the right team, and given that 2-point lead, that may be the case. But check the odds about 9 days, because if they don't get a result against Sociedad and they don't against Atleti, the whole thing flips, and then the conversation we're having flips, and then the narrative around Bellingham flips. So this stuff can go and come very quickly. But what he's done has been remarkable, to say the least.
And by the way, if you didn't know already, there you've just heard it. Dalen is your man when it comes to the odds. If you are looking to go that way with these, but that's interesting. That we'll keep an eye on that. We'll let you keep us up to date with it, Dalen, and see how the next few weeks unfold. So we mentioned that we were going to bring up top free agents coming up in 2024. Those players who will be out of contract in the summer that's coming up, so next summer. Few names to mention before we get to the biggest name of all, of course, in this list. So Nico Williams, keep an eye on what's going to happen there with Athletic. Club de Bilbao, apparently Manchester United have their sights set on him. Adrian Rabiot, Kyle Walker, another one who has said that game time is his priority. So that's worth noting for him. Eric Dyer as well, not part of Ange Postecoglou's plans, and Alejandro Balde, although all signs do point to continuing his career at Barcelona. But we'll see how that situation unfolds. But of course, I mentioned the big one, and it will come up all season, even before the summer, because we've been talking about it for the last few years now. It is, of course, Kylian Mbappe. He can have a pre-contract agreement in January. He'll be a free agent in summer of 2024. What's going to happen, Janusz? Because we can't even, it's got to the point where we don't even know what to make of anything.
Yes, we
the last
do.
statement was that he was going to make sure that PSG weren't left without anything, but we also know that Real Madrid's his dream. What's next?
We know. We continue to talk about a topic that's closed, and we knew it since you were 12 years old, right? I mean, we're going to be sitting here next week. People want to hear about Mbappe. People want to hear about these big names, and I think that we're going to come to a conclusion it's always been out there, right? And that's going to be Real Madrid. That's where Kylian Mbappe is going to be next season, or whenever that is. Next season is the closest one. So that's the club that I think that, and maybe Barcelona. Although I think if you look at the history and the Champions League and all that, we can easily say the biggest club in the world. And Kylian Mbappe is going to be there. He's going to be protected by his two teammates who are just growing in strength in Camavinga and Tchouaméni. And so I don't really have much to say. He's a franchise player. I think there's a reason why Real Madrid are kind of strategically are building or rebuilding their Galacticos in a way, right? After having so much success recently in the Champions League, they knew they had to change things with Karim Benzema leaving. People will say that it's going to create some issues with Vinny, who likes to play wide left, and so is Mbappe, and Bellingham is sort of a 9.5. It doesn't really matter, because I'm sure either Ancelotti or whoever is going to be next is going to find a way to make that tick. But let's be clear here: Kylian Mbappe is going to be a Real Madrid player.
For the love of God, okay. For the love of God, let January 1st just give us a pre-contract and have this be done with. I mean, we talk about this every week for 3 years now. I mean, for 2-3 years, this is a non-stop conversation. And yes, I would love for it to be done, and I do totally agree with Janusz. I think it's going to be Real Madrid. I would love for it to be like on January 1st, just have some mercy and just be done with it so we can let it go. But I don't see that's not going to happen. It's like a telenovela, but that's not in French culture. I don't know what the French soap operas are. Who knows?
Absolutely not. But you know what? We are here for it, and we'll be talking about it. Whatever.
No, it's a great topic, and I'm already as I was talking about it, I'm thinking, oh my goodness, trying to put the lineup together. I mean, a franchise player, but our standards here on this side of the pond, that's going to be there for years. And well, we'll get to talk about Kylian Mbappe a little bit later on, so I'll save it.
But that part excites me, Janusz. That, like, how they play and what it could look like, that excites me. Where he's going to go.
There is more to come.
I'm over. Sorry, Rob Moore. I can't do it anymore.
Listen, people, stay with us. There's more to come, because somebody, I don't know if it's FC or I don't know who put that out there, because there's talk about Kylian Mbappe ruining his own legacy, which I think is absolutely crazy.
Well, hold that thought. Hold that thought, because we're going to bring the hot takes out there, okay? These are hot takes. Maybe from our FC show, maybe from social media, but these are set hot takes. We're going to give them to you, and I'm going to challenge you guys, one sentence, if you can, to tell me what you make of this hot take. I'll start with you, Janusz. Jadon Sancho, the biggest transfer flop in the last 10 years.
Situation is not great. I mean, I was going to think maybe Anthony in that so far. Maybe he hasn't been there as long.
Ken Hazard.
They certainly have some issues there. I mean, you have to say that he's up there, right? I mean,
One
not that
sentence.
I'm sorry.
One sentence. Yes or no?
Yes.
Wow.
'Cause I
Okay.
can't think of anybody else right now.
I mean, Usman Dembele says, "Hold my beer." He was about like $160 million, and he never amounted to anything. That's the thing. The difference with Hazard, though. Okay, Hazard was successful, and then it was a bad transfer.
Yeah, okay,
Sancho and Dembele have really. Sancho was okay, good at Dortmund, but had not accomplished the same stuff that Eden Hazard accomplished.
Fair play to you. Hazard tops that. Fair play.
Okay, next. I'll start with you, Dalen. Pep Guardiola has surpassed Sir Alex Ferguson as best manager of all time.
The pundits will not let that happen. The love of Alex Ferguson is still there, so he will still be number one. Pep will be number two currently. Sir Alex Ferguson. Exactly. There you go.
I hope it's not just the pundits. It's a straight up questions. It's nowhere close. Even right. Sir Alex Ferguson, by far still. Pep Guardiola has a chance. We all love him. I do love him as well. But if you look at the titles, and there's always money at Manchester United, but I think he's done it more organically as Pep Guardiola. I think a little bit more means with that, even though obviously he's a great manager. But it's not even close. Sir Alex Ferguson.
Okay. Manchester United, Dalen, worse off under Ten Hag than Solskjaer.
Oh. TBD, but we don't sit on the fence here. So yeah, they're worse off right now. Right now, it is a more untenable situation, potentially.
No, come on. I mean, even the players didn't trust Solskjaer. I mean, at least Ten Hag gave you some hope, right? I mean, when Solskjaer
you said gave. That's a past tense word. He's still the coach. Shouldn't be gives.
But I mean, right. So if I compare the two, I mean, I don't think it's even a question. No, Erik Ten Hag, even though he's going to be tested right now, I give you that. But what he's done last season, he returned Manchester United into a bit of a conversation, and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer wasn't even close to that conversation.
Well, Janusz, seeing as though you've already teased this one, I'll start with you. Kylian Mbappe ruining his own legacy.
No, he's just working on his legacy. What's he? 24 years old, World Cup champion, won, League One. Let's forget about that. But as I've said, when we see him at Real Madrid, by then he's going to have more Champions League trophies. He's probably he could be European champion. He could be another world champions. The way this France team looks right now, as young as they are, we've seen what they've done against Argentina, and we've seen what Kylian Mbappe, right? We're talking about Messi. We're talking about Argentina. It's great what they've done, but a hat trick in that final from Kylian Mbappe, that's just an indication of what he's capable of. And once surrounded by all those stars, I think we're going to be talking about Ballon d'Or winner in no time.
Let's let the old people stop trying to write a legacy for a guy in his early 20s. All right, he's got a lot of things left to accomplish, but to do that, he does need to leave Ligue 1. And as we just talked about, let's go Real Madrid. He's done everything at the international level already, almost everything, at the highest level. So the world knows who he is. But to really be the guy that he wants to be and to write that legacy and to be mentioned in the greatest players of all time, he has to do it at a club level outside of France. So he got to make that move, hopefully, as I said, as soon as possible and start starting to write that legacy.
That's right.
Okay. And talking of soon as possible, league football is coming back this weekend. Gets off with a bang as well, particularly in the Bundesliga, as we will see Bayern Munich away to Bayer Leverkusen, who beat them at the end of last season. So this one's going to be very interesting. Make sure to be with us 3 times a week here on ESPN FC Live, and make sure to always watch ESPN FC every single day. We'll see you next time.